What House of the Dragon actor caused someone to lose an eye in real life? And who once broke a teenager's jaw and lost his job? Keep watching for the actors who made headlines before they ever reached Westeros. Paddy Considine's House of the Dragon character, King Viserys, remains a tragic figure until his body quite literally fails him. As it turns out, Considine himself knows something about trouble as well. Considine's issues used to seem work-related, according to The Guardian. Around 2009 or 2010, he felt that he wasn't a good actor, or rather that he was a terribly uneven one. This was a problem since he had a beloved body of work under his belt. Even an acting coach he worked with had a hard time understanding his problem. This, after all, was Paddy Considine, of Tyrannosaur, Hot Fuzz, and Dead Man's Shoes fame. It turned out that Considine's feelings of concern derived from the fact that he was on the spectrum. The initial autism spectrum disorder diagnosis wasn't exactly surprising to him. But when he found out in 2014 that he also had Irlen syndrome, things truly clicked. Irlen syndrome is a light sensitivity condition that affects concentration and visual awareness.
So I was living in quite a scary world.
After Considine found out, he not only was able to treat his condition correctly, but he could even harness his better understanding of his situation to improve his craft. Due to roles like the Doctor in Doctor Who, Prince Philip in The Crown, and of course Daemon Targaryen in House of the Dragon, Matt Smith's acting plaudits can hardly be denied. However, if the actor had any say in the matter when he was younger, he might not work in the industry at all, because he used to have a very different career in mind before an injury forced his hand. Smith used to be a talented soccer player and was looking to follow his grandfather as a pro.
I love this game!
Unfortunately, Smith's dorsal health situation had other plans in mind. The 16-year-old star prospect was signed with Leicester City when he was diagnosed with a degenerative disc disease in his back, which effectively slammed the door on his dreams of becoming a professional athlete. Before he pivoted to acting, the situation was understandably hard for Smith, who told Radio 4's Kirsty Young, "It was a tough time because I just felt unfulfilled, to be honest. I felt like I was so certain that that is what I was going to do. It was very difficult for me to tell people that I had been released because the vain part of me was like, I am that, and I am the footballer, you know? And at school, I was the footballer, and suddenly I wasn't that."
Secret talent, Matt.
Football, but it's not that secret.
Things aren't easy for a female royal in Westeros, and Olivia Cooke's Alicent Hightower knows this better than many. While acting isn't quite as dangerous as the machinations in the Game of Thrones universe, Cooke herself hasn't always had an easy time either. In an interview with The Guardian, she revealed that she has struggled with her mental health, and although she attempted to work through the depression, things caught up with her in 2016 when she was shooting A&E's Bates Motel. Cooke told The Guardian, "I'm so grateful for that job, but I had a really tough time on it. The way the schedule worked, we all had different storylines, so a lot of my time was spent in this apartment in Vancouver, working once every 2 weeks. Eventually, things culminated in what she described as a mental breakdown, saying, "It was bad, awful actually." Cooke says it wasn't until 2019 that she finally started to feel better for longer stretches of time. Though she still continues to actively work through her issues, she has found a path to better mental health over the years. Sir Otto Hightower is one of Westeros' most ambitious movers and shakers, and as a veteran of heroic and villainous roles alike, Rhys Ifans is a perfect choice to play the character. In House of the Dragon Season 1, Hightower operates with varying levels of smoothness, willing to play the game with whatever cards he has at his disposal. Incidentally, in his civilian life, Ifans himself has a history as something of a wild card. In 2013, he gave such an antagonizing interview to The Times that it sparked a widespread media discussion among British journalists. In 2011, he was arrested at New York Comic Con for alleged battery. Interviews after his breakthrough as Spike in 1999's Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant comedy Notting Hill could paint him as a fascinating, unpredictable figure.
Combination of factors, really.
As such, it wasn't exactly surprising that the tabloids took an interest. Unfortunately, the kind of interest a certain tabloid took was pretty surprising. According to The Independent, Ifans was one of the celebrities whose phones were hacked by a now-defunct British tabloid called News of the World. Ifans started receiving hang-up calls around 2005, and his phone also started having curious background sounds. Ifans' part in the long-running high society-shaking phone hacking scandal came to a close in 2013, when he reached a settlement and was awarded an unspecified monetary sum in compensation. Fabien Frankel's House of the Dragon character, Sir Criston Cole, might sound like a fairly straight-laced knight in shining armor, but as the actor himself told the New York Times, Sir Criston has a very dark and bitter undercurrent that makes him a surprisingly good fit for the show's muddled political waters. In true Game of Thrones fashion, that proverbial shining armor soon tarnishes, and before the season is over, Sir Criston is a somewhat jaded man who earns the nickname Kingmaker.
The sin you allude to. I have committed it.
Frankel might be a relatively fresh face in acting, but the art most certainly runs in his family. In fact, his father was Mark Frankel, an actor who had already made a name for himself and was reportedly just about to break into wider fame when he died in a motorcycle accident. The elder Frankel was only 34 when he passed away. Fabien was just 2 years old at the time. Though this means Frankel never really knew his father, the fact that he also gravitated toward acting has ended up giving him a strange sense of comfort. He said in an interview with Vogue, "I'm getting to the age that he was when he came out of drama school. As I've started working, people from his life have magically appeared and found me. I've gotten to know him through them, and that's been lovely." Steve Toussaint entered the House of the Dragon universe as an experienced yet fairly anonymous actor. Meanwhile, the role he landed, Corlys Sea Snake Velaryon, is a very major character in the show.
What is this brief mortal life, if not the pursuit of legacy?
Unfortunately, the news of Toussaint's casting led to racist abuse from people who took issue with Lord Corlys being black. For his part, Toussaint was extremely ready for what was coming. Describing the toxic fan reaction, he said, "I mentioned this the other day to my white friends, and they were all like, 'Oh my god.' But when I mentioned it to my friends of color, they were like, 'Well, we knew that was coming, you know? We were just, I wonder how long it will take.' And it was minutes." Toussaint has also called out the racist reaction, pointing out how absurd it is that his playing a powerful fantasy character like Lord Corlys has certain people up in arms, while there are massive dragons in the very same show. Fortunately, he's also received plenty of positive feedback for his work in the show. He said, "What has been wonderful is for every toxic person that has somehow found their way into my timeline, there have been so many others who have been so supportive and been like, 'Oh my god, I can't wait, this is going to be great.'" Elliott Tittensor plays Sir Eric Cargill in House of the Dragon, but to the British public, he may be better known for his long-standing role in Channel 4's Shameless, in which he and his twin brother share the role of Carl Gallagher. The show isn't all that aptly named when it comes to Tittensor, however, because the actor has his own very public reason for shame. Said reason dates back to 2010. Tittensor was 20 years old when he drove a car without insurance and had an accident that caused significant injury to an 18-year-old man. This wasn't just a simple crash either. The tragic accident followed an altercation over a phone, which ended up with the 18-year-old falling from the hood of Tittensor's vehicle. One of the injured man's eyes went blind and he suffered brain damage. Tittensor was initially just fined for the incident, but it haunted him for quite some time after that ruling. On his way out of the court, the actor was attacked by a 46-year-old man. The car accident also played a part in the breakup between him and fellow actor Kaya Scodelario. Finally, in 2015, a lawsuit by the victim led to Tittensor having to pay over $339,000 in damages. Just like his twin, Elliott, Luke Tittensor is a part of the House of the Dragon cast. Perhaps understandably, the character he plays is Sir Eric Cargill, Eric with an A, the twin brother of Elliott's character Sir Eric with an E.
Prince Aegon spends many a night in this place. Do you see now what he is?
Unfortunately, neither brother has been able to avoid nasty situations over the course of their career. A year before Elliott's car accident, Luke was involved in another altercation that caused serious damage to the victim, according to the BBC. In March 2009, 19-year-old Luke Tittensor was a long-standing cast member of the British soap opera Emmerdale when his career screeched to a halt after a strange assault case where Tittensor broke the jaw of a 16-year-old, according to the BBC. The victim was hospitalized and required surgery. Tittensor pleaded guilty in April 2009, at which point he'd already lost his Emmerdale role after the people behind the show learned of the incident. He was sentenced to 200 hours of community service and had to pay the equivalent of over $2,000 in costs and damages. Phil Daniels' Maester Gerardus is hardly the most major character in House of the Dragon Season 1, but the British actor playing the recurring figure is quite well known. According to The Guardian, Daniels rose to fame due to his high-profile roles in the 1970s, and he's racked up plenty of stage and screen credits over his career. For 3 decades of his life, his family life was also in fine order. Unfortunately, his longtime partner, Jan Stevens, died in 2012, which Daniels is quick to admit was an awful blow to him. According to The Guardian, the cause of Stevens' death was pancreatic cancer. Daniels has noted that the tragedy was particularly hard on their daughter, Ella. Ryan Corr plays Sir Harwin Strong, a powerful and influential knight who's also somewhat scandal-prone, what with being Princess Rhaenyra's secret lover.
Is Harwin Strong my father?
However, despite having multiple children with Rhaenyra and being the future Lord of Harrenhal, Sir Harwin's role in the grand scheme of things turns out to be somewhat smaller, though significantly more fiery than one might think. Corr himself has also experienced his own scandal, and unlike his House of the Dragon character, the actor didn't exactly keep things on the down low. According to the Daily Telegraph, in 2014, the Australian actor had a particularly rough time. First, his beloved grandfather fell into a coma. Mere days later, Corr himself was arrested for drug possession. Corr took the drug charges as a learning experience, stating that he had been given the small amount of heroin he was carrying and noting that he didn't actually use any of it. In an interview with Australian GQ, he described it as an error in judgment, saying, "I found myself in a position where I was incredibly upset. Someone offered me something, and 200 meters after, I was picked up with it. As a silver lining, the situation didn't hamper Corr's career in the long run." He was given a relatively light sentence in the form of a 1-year good behavior bond, and he says he actually received a surprising amount of support during the ordeal.